Greetings and salutations. This is the Adjutant, and today I want to talk to you about the first time I realized the military had changed who I was. Not my rank, not my paycheck, not my resume, but me. And the strange thing is, I didn't notice it while it was actually happening, because the change like this doesn't arrive loudly, one habit at a time, one responsibility at a time, and one hard season at a time. And I think that's why many of us miss it, because we think transformation looks dramatic. But real transformation, folks, usually looks ordinary, until one day you realize you are no longer the same person. I didn't join the military because I had some perfect dream that most people do. I didn't grow up believing this was my calling. I joined because I needed direction. I needed structure. I've talked about this in other videos of mine where I just had nowhere else to go. I needed options. And if I'm being honest, life didn't feel full of opportunities back then at all. I went through a period of time where I was homeless. I was thrown out of my house at a very young age and had to kind of fend for myself. So I wasn't entering the military as a confident young man with everything figured out. I was trying to actually, find my footing, trying to build something, trying to become something. And I think many people understand that feeling. Sometimes people join because, they're inspired. Sometimes they join, because they're escaping something. Sometimes they join because they actually need purpose. Now, for me, it was for survival mixed with all types of possibilities. See, when I first entered the military, life, everything just felt different. The expectation, the pace, the discipline, the accountability also felt extremely different. And I remember realizing quickly, nobody cared about excuses. Nobody cared that I came from a broken home. Nobody cared that I didn't have the educational background that allowed me to excel in various entrance exams. That was one of the first shocks, because outside the military, life sometimes allows for, explanation. But inside the military life, results are the only thing that matters. Performance matters. Responsibility matters. Something you need to think about. And I think that's where change, quietly begins, because suddenly you stop blaming. You stop blaming your childhood. You stop negotiating with, what I could and what I shouldn't do. You stop waiting for motivation. You just move. Now, one of the biggest shifts for me was discipline. It wasn't motivation. It was actually discipline. Because motivation, folks, is emotional. Discipline becomes identity. You stop asking yourself if you feel like doing something, you simply just do it. And after years and years enough, that becomes who you are. But I think the biggest transformation wasn't external. It was internal. Military life, folks, changed how I thought. It changed how I reacted to various things. It changed how I carried on responsibility. And over time, I became dependable. People counted on me. People expected composure, expected leadership. And once people begin depending on you, you change. I never had strong leadership training growing up. I had to kind of figure things out on my own. And the military certainly gave those tools to do that, to be leaders. So then came another transition we're going to talk about, and one that changed me deeply. Going from enlisted life and becoming an officer. And for those of y'all who may not know this, I actually am known as what is referred to as a Mustang in the military. And those are people who serve both enlisted and officer. And so I came in as a private E1, slick collar is what they call us, nothing on my collar. Went up to a sergeant, going to the staff sergeant board. I was recommended for staff sergeant, then I received a green to gold scholarship. Now, that was the bigger rank, becoming an officer. That was identity. And these are things that a lot of people, you don't want to do, is put all of your identity in the military. Because suddenly you're not just responsible for yourself, you become responsible for people, their futures, their mistakes, their well-being, their careers. Being an officer is pretty responsible. And actually, being senior NCOs, you're actually non-commissioned officers. That is something that you're very responsible for others, and that changes how you think. You stop thinking about your only survival. You begin thinking about stewardship. And somewhere in that journey, without realizing it, I became more controlled emotionally, not cold, but controlled. Because military life teaches you to function under pressure. You still perform, you still lead, you still solve problems. Even, folks, even when you're tired, even when things are uncertain, even when carrying things privately, deal with a lot of private situations, personal situations, and there's strength in that. But there's also a cost, because sometimes you become so good at carrying things quietly, you forget how heavy they are. And that is something I can say from my personal life, even now. You want to have someone that you can relate to, that you can talk to in a non-judgmental, but actually give solid, sound advice. So I think the first real moment I realized the military had changed me was when I went home and realizing I no longer fit the exact same format. People were familiar, places were familiar, but I wasn't. And that's something I realized, that I had outgrown this environment that I was at. I remember seeing conversations differently, seeing priorities differently, seeing reactions differently. Things that once mattered to me didn't matter the same way anymore. I also remember realizing something inside me had shifted, not better, not worse, just different. And that can feel lonely, if I can be quite honest, because transformation creates distance. You still love people, but internally, your lived experiences have changed you and how you interpret life. I mean, imagine, if you will, you're a young person joining the military, coming from nothing in poverty, and then you went on and attained a top secret security clearance and handled nuclear release codes information and all types of things. That changes certainly how you perceive yourself. And the military taught me responsibility, but it also taught me emotional restraint. It taught me how to endure discomfort, how to remain composed, how to carry pressure, and how to survive environments that demand strength. And over time, that becomes part of you. I can certainly tell you that I've gone through difficult challenges in my life, financial, legal, familiar, divorces, things like that. But that my military service, I can absolutely tell you without a doubt, helped me endure all of those traumatic experiences that I'm sure could have ended other people's desire to continue on. Then life continues, as you might understand and might believe, that no matter what happens, your life continues. And for me, my life continued as an attorney. I became an attorney and practiced law for over 13 years. I handled criminal cases, civil cases, family law cases. I became a professor. I taught business law, business ethics at the collegiate level. Federal service, worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs as a claims adjudicator or rater. I rated claims, leadership, responsibility. Those are all things that will continue to grow, and certainly my military service has helped me do very well in those areas of fields. And even when things weren't progressing as smoothly in any of those areas, I can certainly remember looking back in my military career, years stacking on years. And when I look back now, I realize the military didn't shape those careers. It shaped the way I carry myself, the way I think, the way I solve problems, the way I respond to hardship. And maybe the biggest lesson is this: transformation rarely announces itself. It just kind of happens quietly until one day you kind of look back and you realize you become someone completely different. And that is certainly something that I can tell you has happened to me. Now, and I genuinely like to ask you all something at this point. When did you realize military life had changed you? Was it during service? Was it after leaving? When you went home? Go ahead and leave that below in the comment section because I think many people carry that realization silently. Now, if you connected with this, you probably want to watch the next episode in this series. Watch the story about the moment I realized most soldiers carry things they never talk about. And if you enjoy these reflective military conversations, stay inside the Adjutant Story Series playlist. That's where these stories live. And so there you have it. I hope this has been helpful. This is the Adjutant, and I'll see you in the next one. I wish you all blessings and blessings. Shalom.